New signings to talk about with the Charlotte Hornets. Plus, we have a new sideline reporter already. We'll discuss that with David Walker, who also helps us out by finishing the Hornets Grid. We're going to complete a project around here. Coming up next, Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free. We're available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime. Today's episode, it's pretty good. No, it's pretty solid. Today's episode being sponsored by Gametime means you can download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Real quickly, they got rid of the Gametime at the end here. I don't know why. Maybe they just decided to go with the first.
We got to stop these fools.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on. There's Doug Branson, as always, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Make sure you go check out his Substack. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3. And there's David Walker, a Panthers season ticket holder. You can find him on Twitter at David B. Walker, Panthers season ticket holder who might not be going to the home opener in 2024 because of how terrible it went against the Saints in the first game of the season.
You selling your tickets for $1.80?
Not yet. No. Holding out for a couple more. We'll see.
That's why we need the Hornets to do something, man. You know, it was funny. I'm sorry to the commenters on YouTube who were saying, hey, I come here for a getaway from Panthers land, and yet we were talking about them a couple of episodes ago, so I'm sorry. We'll keep it at a minimum this go around. There are a few new signings. Just going to take this first segment to update everyone on what's been going on in Hornets land. So G League head coach announced DJ Baker. We talked with Sam Purley about that. Also some new signings, some guys that might be playing for the G League Swarm here. Doug, what were some of those players that the Hornets acquired over the last couple days?
Yeah, going to be some familiar names if you were paying attention to Summer League and to the G League last season if you're a big Swarm fan. So these names are going to be somewhat familiar. Caleb McConnell, a wing. Marcus Garrett, a wing. Keontae Johnson, that's one of the more recent names that has been brought into the fold, was brought in for Summer League. He's a wing as well from formerly of Oklahoma City. And then you've got Joel Soriano, who was a name that was mentioned around Summer League training camp, and we thought we would see him. He's a big, but never got a look at him really in Summer League at all. But all four of these guys are back on Exhibit 10 contracts, so essentially training camp contracts, with an opportunity to earn a little bit more money if they play a significant amount of time for the G League squad. But the Hornets, just filling out the end of their roster here as they get set to start training camp soon.
David, we had this conversation with Sam yesterday. I'm interested in your thoughts because we talked about the G League not necessarily being a punishment. It felt like Dwayne Bacon was the first to get that going. How I just want to hoop. I don't care if I have to do it with the Swarm. Devontae Graham followed suit. Jalen McDaniels was also a part of that, going back and forth from the Swarm up to the big league roster as well. So it does feel like the developmental system, at least with the guys that play in the G League, has worked out pretty nicely. There hasn't been, I think, a monster home run of a developmental story as far as them playing here and sticking around and being one of the faces of the franchise. But what's happened is like Devontae Graham turns into a first-round pick. Jalen McDaniels, useful enough player here, gets traded for some compensation. And then Dwayne Bacon was at least enough of a guy that was viewed as a starter for a while. Didn't go very well. But the developmental system with James Borrego, like we've seemed to have kept that going at least a little bit, even if it doesn't turn into a lot of wins. Like it feels like we need to take that next step. But overall, I feel like we have a pretty solid foundation with the Swarm kind of helping us out for guys that just aren't ready for the big leagues yet.
100%. Dwayne Bacon, G League legend. And you're right, kind of the Jackie Robinson, if you will, of G Leaguers and Hornets, and using that as a platform. But also Mark Williams, before he came up to Charlotte, made an impact here.
Mark was balling. Yeah,
he did a little action in Greensboro. I think it's useful, Doug. I'll let you jump in here, but the fact that they can just run him up the highway there and back. I mean, that's a real nice thing to have in your back pocket, to get some people some minutes, get some guys on the court when maybe not be able to do it here. I mean, I think Leaky did it a couple times too. No longer with the team right now, but yeah, I mean, I think they're using it the right way. You haven't seen like you said, like the big home run signing or somebody that catapults into like, most improved player or like award season territory. But they're using it to kind of fill out the back end of their roster, and hopefully they'll hit on one of those guys at that level at some point. But I think they're using it the right way.
Were you getting my body language signals that I wanted to jump in there? See, that's called
I always feel it. Like I'm expecting it as soon as we start going. Yeah.
Wait, so maybe I ought to let you talk for more than 30 seconds before I jump in with the body language signals. But what I wanted to say, and you hit on it towards the end of your take there, is the one thing that we've been missing, even though I agree with Walker that there's been a solid developmental system set up going back to James Borrego, that developmental system has benefited players that the Hornets bring in, high-profile players that they bring in via draft and free agency. What we haven't seen yet, and what I hope to see with this new regime, is one of these players that I mentioned or some other player in the future that comes out of nowhere, pops off. We've seen this a lot in Miami Heat's, backbench, where a guy will just come up and start contributing serious minutes to a team, and you go, wow, where did they find this guy? It's just jumped off the page, jumped off the radar, crazy kind of stuff like that. That's what we've been missing so far. We haven't seen one of those diamonds in the rough yet. I don't know if it's going to be one of these names, but I hope that we see something like that soon. And listen, with the way the injuries have been for the past few seasons, it's not like they haven't had an opportunity to find one of those players and give them minutes.
And it's incredibly hard to find those guys. There's a reason they're not all over the place. And right. I wonder how much you have to be a good team. Is the foundation, the culture already set before those guys can pop off? Because here you are with Miami, and you're right. I mean, that actually is a common occurrence down there. It's annoying how much of a common occurrence it is down there, but it's true. But even an Austin Reeves, who comes in as, I don't even know if he was drafted. If he was a late second round guy. But Austin Reeves gets a big contract with the Lakers. I think he would absolutely qualify as, who in the bleep is this? Oh, now we want to pay him like $15 million a year, whatever it is. Yeah, and it'd be a good contract. Cool. Like this is where being good solves a lot of problems. Just having the right foundation, the right culture set in stone, and then it's easier to continue to just like do the little things that help you, if not at the very top of the mountain, stay close to the top. So you only have to make a couple minor adjustments to climb back up the ladder once more.
So, Walker, you were right. Austin Reeves went undrafted in the 2021 draft after declining to be selected 42nd overall by the Detroit Pistons. Instead, signing a two-way contract with the Los Angeles Lakers. That shows judgment, folks. I mean, that's a sign right there that kid was going somewhere. The judgment shown by declining to be drafted because you were being taken by the Detroit Pistons.
And I like how the Hornets are kind of using the Thunder as their secondary G League team now. So they're really getting like two swings. They're getting two swings at some of these guys. They're like, well, he's over there. Let's bring him here. So, I mean, it might work out. I mean, you can't say Johnson is a nice example of that, right? So, yeah, it's fun. I wish we had a little more, paid a little more attention to the Swarm kind of in season, but there's so much stuff going on that we only pay attention really when somebody from the Hornets goes down and comes back, right? So that's the thing we haven't seen. It's just like the Charlotte coming to Charlotte and staying, as you guys have pointed out. So we'll see what happens.
Well, David, you could volunteer and be our Swarm reporter. Watch every Swarm game, make some trips down there, report on the scene. Come on, step up.
That's true. I'll look into my schedule. Okay. Let's see what the Panthers tickets are like.
Yeah. I'm not going to Panthers game anymore. There you go. All right. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. The next guy we're going to talk about was drafted and played very well for the Hornets when he was playing for him a couple of years ago. Fringe All-Star. What kind of level can he play this season? Miles Bridges on Twitter. He says he has his bounce back. What do we have to say about Miles and his comments and what he could look like this year? It's coming up next. LOH. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. It's the formula for winning championships, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Before we move on to Miles Bridges, there was another hire, not a player acquisition, but a broadcast acquisition. We talked about it earlier in the week. Ashley Shamity leaving for, I believe, ESPN to be a college football reporter. We'll see what else she does because she's been a part of so many different networks. But they didn't even wait like 24 hours before they hired somebody to replace Ashley Shamity. Who is the new broadcaster, Doug?
It is Shannon Spake. It might be a familiar name to folks that are plugged into Charlotte's local news and might remember her from when she got her start in this industry with the Charlotte Bobcats. And listen, I mean, anyone that starts their career covering the Charlotte Bobcats and is still has a love of sports, I think should be respected and commended. But yeah, Shannon Spake, she worked, I think, for WCCB for a while, and now does a lot of coverage of NASCAR for True TV, Max, that whole situation there. So covering NASCAR, covering the Hornets. I mean, it's just kind of a natural pairing being in Charlotte. But yeah, Shannon Spake joins the squad.
If you cover the Bobcats to start your career, I think we can call you Shannon Sicko. The fact that you've been in the game
let's find out. Let's get her on the show.
We can.
Give us some
Shannon
Bobcats
Sicko.
trivia.
You know what? Last thing, real quick, like with this was a veteran hire, right? With Ashley Shamity, she was up and coming. This was somebody that was new to all of this. She got her start in Mississippi, and she was looking to continue to climb up as well. And that was the reporter that they decided to go with. But the Hornets, Valley, now here they are just hiring a vet, somebody that we know can do the job well. There's no questions about it. She's already established her career, all the followers, all the experience, all the coverage. So was Steph ready like that too? Or had she done some other things before she was hired to help?
We might have lost Walker. Did we get him back? We got him back. Walker, you're back. It's okay. Keep going.
Okay. My question was Steph ready an up-and-comer when they hired her, or was she already pretty experienced as well?
I feel like up-and-comer. I'll look this up during the next break, but I feel like up-and-comer. But because she had been a coach previously.
She'd been in coaching.
Right.
Okay.
But broadcast-wise, I felt like it was a launch opportunity for her. But I will definitely look that up.
So.
Here's the thing that I want to say about the veteran comment that you make there, Walker. It's interesting, right? And I wonder if new ownership and new general management might be looking at these broadcast opportunities and maybe build out something like we see in Memphis, which is Grind City Media. Like the team media there are voices that have carried over for many, many years. You've seen consistency with the people that are on air, and people come to know them, people come to love them, people come to make that a part of the overall experience where, as with the Hornets, I mean, we've seen the studio team that does like pregame and halftime. That flips every year. So I wonder if they're looking to maybe establish like rock solid names that we're going to be seeing for not just this season, but many seasons to come.
Thinking that could be their kind of launch pad, Doug, into their own broadcasting, right? Like taking it all in-house possibly, or doing something like the Lakers do where, you've got you're running the show, right? You're not a holding to a Bally.
Right. And if you're going to do that, why not hire someone like Shannon Spake, who has solid experience leading a show, not just doing sideline reporting, but she leads shows. So I'm saying, is this a signal that we're going to see something built like that? I don't know that, but it would seem like that.
So Miles Bridges used to be an up-and-comer. Now he's a wily old vet, one of the older players,
segue.
I guess. You like that? Now he's a wily old vet,
Speaking of pros.
It's interesting to see this kind of step that Miles Bridges is about to take, right? Obviously, with the off-the-court stuff that's been going on with him, he was out of basketball for a year, out of basketball last year for the first 10 games. contract situation carried over for a couple of seasons, didn't know when he was going to get paid, how much he was going to get paid. We finally have all those answers done. We're good. We've got Miles Bridges going forward. He's going to play with the Hornets. Charlotte decided to pay him a descending contract, 27, 25, 23, and he's a big part of this team. He's a part of the core. He's a top 100 player, according to Hoops Hype, and I would imagine it would look very similar to whatever publication is putting out their top 100 NBA players list. So with Miles, we have to figure out if his athleticism is back to where it was before he was out of basketball for the Charge, and now we have to figure out if he can go back to a role where he's like the tertiary option rather than what I would imagine is primary and secondary in LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller. The athleticism is a big thing, Doug. He tweeted about having his hops back a couple of days ago.
Yeah, so this was about a week ago, September 5th. He tweeted, "Got all my bounce back for all you know-it-alls who think I lost it. Yawn emoji."
That was you. He was talking right at you.
You think he was pointing that at me? But here's what confuses me about the tweet is that he says, "You know-it-alls that think I lost it," and yet he's saying he got his bounce back, which would seem to confirm that he may have lost it. And if you go back to last season when people were tweeting about him not having the same hops or thinking about him in previous seasons and showing highlights of him and being like, where did this go? He would like reply to them on Instagram or whatever and say, yeah, no, I know it's coming. Like I'm getting it. I'm getting back. So like, yeah, I mean, it's just an odd way to frame the tweet to make it seem like he never lost it, but he did lose. I don't know. I'm confused.
No, you're good. I think a couple things. One, honestly, Miles has been very, well, maybe I should walk this back.
You haven't even said, hold on. You didn't even say it. You're walking it back inside your own head.
Well, I was going to say he's been very self-aware on Twitter, but I need to specify that with only basketball stuff. With his basketball playing ability, he's been very aware on Twitter because remember, I think it was his rookie year. Didn't he say, I'm not going to lie, I played like ass. I'll be better next season. Mm-hmm. Remember, like Miles Bridges has talked about, even last year, you're right. He would respond to people or he would say things like, yeah, I'll get my bounce back. So maybe it's all the people that think his bounce is not going to be reclaimed ever again. Like it's never going to come back with some of the people that might think at 26 years old, you're getting older. Usually that's not a sign for people becoming more athletic. And so that might make some sense, but we're going to have to see it. Like the reality is, and Miles knew it, the dunk percentage was down. He wasn't as explosive. He was settling for mid-range jumpers because he wasn't getting to the rim as much. Like those are what the numbers say. Those are what the eye tests say. It doesn't mean that he can never get it back. I'm willing to have a conversation and I'm willing to be wrong about him being out for a year, not being up to basketball playing shape because that's a lot of time not playing basketball. So maybe it does take a long time to get something in the neighborhood of what your athleticism used to be. Like he is clearly in contention for the most athletic Hornet of all time. But these high jumpers, these high flyers, man, it doesn't last forever. Like Blake Griffin, goodness gracious, I don't know how long it lasted for him, but when he turned 26, 27, he had to transform his game. He became a little bit more of an outside shooter. He had to win in different ways rather than just thrunking it and dunking it on you every time. This is what people have to do. Same thing with Vince Carter, right? All the high flyers have to transform their game. Oh, yeah. My question is, I do think we're going to enter the infant stages, the toddler stages, something very young of a beginning process to transform as a basketball player because at 26, it's not a thing against Miles. It's a thing against all basketball players once you get that old. I don't know if you're going to be able to rely on your athleticism as much.
Yeah, the one thing that Miles may have in his favor, though, which those guys did not, is he did have a year off. You know, if you're talking about wear and tear on the body, you haven't seen a lot of these guys just take a complete season off, which obviously good and bad. That's why we're talking about it. It's hard to get that bounce back right away. But if you're talking about just Miles on the legs, then maybe he was able to get it back. I mean, I can't imagine all the hard work that would go into doing that. And we'll just have to see. Because a lot of times you can feel that, right? But what transpires on the court might not be equal up to kind of what you're feeling internally and how it feels to you on the court. But the fact that he's posting this, I for one am happy to see. Like we didn't see a video though, right? We didn't see any workout videos or muscle watch type stuff. Okay, no. So we haven't seen that yet. But the fact that he feels good enough to put that out there, and he was obviously hearing that, and he was obviously feeling that too. I think has to be encouraging. So, look, hey, Vince still dunking at 40, not with the same way he was, but I wouldn't count him out of this, being able to get some of that athleticism back. I will say, I think I pointed at you, Doug, but I mean, I had written it off after most of last season because I was like, it's just going to be hard, man. It's going to be really hard to come back and be the exact same player after taking that time off. But, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, certainly the Hornets and certainly Miles are hoping that is the case because he was just a little bit of a different player last year.
Well, the difficult part for Miles is that he stepped in to a context, to a situation, to a team that quickly became a different team than before all of this went down, right? And so they were without LaMelo Ball for a large portion of that. He became a primary way to get the offense going, along with Brandon Miller, for a large chunk of this season. And I think he even insinuated at different points, maybe towards the end of the season, that he was trying to expand his game. How much of that was personally driven? How much of that was coach driven? How much of that was contract driven? That, he wanted to show that he was a multi-level scorer as opposed to a guy that you would just throw the ball to in transition situations or off-ball situations and say, hey, put your head down, get to the rim and get me a dunk or something. So that you have to wonder about all of that as he does transition back to a tertiary option, as Walker was saying. It's a lot easier to be guy who dunks a lot when you're the third option than it is when you've got to make a ton of decisions with the ball in your hands, which we saw him struggle with, by the way. And I think that's going to sort of cap his overall ability to be seen as a main guy in future contract situations. But if he is able to say, hey, here's what I do well, let me settle into this role, it could be very positive for the Charlotte Hornets. I think what's interesting, the larger conversation here, is that when the Hornets talk about their core and when people talk about the Hornets core, so often they say it's LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and Mark Williams. And maybe that's a sort of factor of youth, that all those guys are around the similar age. But they don't throw Miles Bridges into that conversation. But I think Miles Bridges, if he reaches max Miles Bridges, if he gets all his bounce back and he settles into that role perfectly and expands his stats a little bit and his efficiency, particularly offensively, and plays better defensively, if Charles Lee can challenge him in that way, he responds in that way, to me, he's the fulcrum point of obviously health, but fulcrum point of, does this team be a threat to win a play-in game or even make the playoffs? I think you look squarely at Miles Bridges.
Yeah, and it's all about the future. The contract negotiation was kind of weird because the contract isn't saying, hey, we're locked in with you, baby. Like, we're ready to go with this as our trio, this is our core. It's, we are paying you what we think is a fair value for your basketball ability. And if we need to trade you, we can. But also, if you're just going to be a good basketball player for us, then we're paying you for that. Like, it seems like a pretty fair deal on all accounts. Last thing, look, there are plenty of other players to go to. I don't have an overwhelming amount of research, but I did look at Blake Griffin's numbers as far as a guy that really was dunking a lot early in their career, where that was a lot of their offensive game. Vince Carter's a little different because he was a primary option, lead vote getter in all-star games every year. Like, he was all NBA level. Yep. That's not Miles, right? So, and Blake was an all-star, but you get the idea. Blake Griffin's dunk percentage started to go down at like 25 years old. It was 17.6, 20, 14.2. At age 25, it was 8. At age 26, it was 6, and it never got back up to double digits ever again. Miles Bridges just posted his lowest dunk percentage of his career, and it was at 5.8%. The previous low was 7% his second season in the league, but every other one was double digit. Like, it's a thing. I like the idea about being a third option, being set up more. So cuts, right? I could see LaMelo hitting Miles, going towards the basket, getting out in transition, playing with LaMelo probably gives him more dunks. And so perhaps that's how he gets back up there. But I do think, like, there is some found numbers, some found research to look at and say, you know what, this is when players start to lose some of that athleticism. And it's not a Miles thing. It's a NBA player thing.
I wonder how much the contract will play into some of this. I don't know if it's direct correlation to like athleticism, but I mean, look, he was playing on a show me, very low contract last year, and at least this time he got more money. He got some of his money back. Didn't probably get the years or the money that he and his team were looking for, but I mean, that's as settled as it has been in 3 years as far as like where he's going to play this year. Who's going to pay him. What's written on paper, that's a little bit more settled. I just wondered, like from a mindset standpoint, if that helps him go out there and play with a little more, reckless abandon or something like that.
All right.
Well, and the only reason we're talking about this is and making a focus about Bridges' bounce is because he tried to be a mid-range shooter last season and it didn't work. He's always been a below-average mid-range shooter. It was even worse last season. It went from 43rd percentile to 36th percentile, and then his three-point shooting was inconsistent, below average, right around average, 44th percentile, but still below average as a three-point shooter. When he had his most efficient season, he was a 40% three-point shooter, and he was awesome at the rim, 72% at the rim, 68% at the rim the next season, and then last season, 65% at the rim, which is just at average. If he's going to be average at the rim, below average from mid-range, and below average from the three-point line, that equals ineffective offensive player.
Well, I mean,
it doesn't matter how many. By the way, it doesn't matter how many points you score. It doesn't matter if you score 20+ points. It makes you an ineffective offensive player if those are the realities.
I mean, that 1 mile season you pointed to, like, it's all the right shots and he's good at them. Like, that's how you get into all-star territory, which is what he was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Hey, crazy. All right, let's move on. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. Time to finish the Hornets Grid. I hope we have enough time to do this, but we're going to try to finish the Hornets Grid today with David. It's coming up next here on the Locked On Hornets podcast. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier.
Hold on, David, let me give you a tip. When he says game, that's when you should start your game time. I think that's good. We'll try it at the end. When you hear the word
Are you
game,
saying I'm early? No,
you're late. You're late. So when he says game, you hit it.
Agree to disagree.
Okay. Yeah, look, I mean, there's not as many reps. We've been doing this a long time, so there's no reason we should be laughing at you. And yet it's funny, and we laugh. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Plus, they have all-in pricing where you can toggle a feature that shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Love the no surprise fees thing. I hate when I think, okay, yeah, I'm going to get a good deal. Oh, wait, except all these bonuses, taxes, all this stuff at the very end. Oh, wait, now it's like $25, $30 more. None of that with Gametime. Seat views, lowest price guarantee. Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Lowest price guarantee. That's how effective it is. Plus, there's Gametime ticket coverage. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time.
No, you just got to scare me now. I can't do it.
All right, let's move on. We'll be better the next time, I promise. And I thought we were going to be able to do it. And, I mean, it's amazing. Like, there are things that do not allow us to complete projects on this show. And we were right there. I mean, we were going to cross the finish line today. And the Hornets Grid has been deleted. We do not have the Hornets Grid anymore. It's gone. It's vanished. All we had to do was put 2 more faces in the 2 boxes left. We're going to complete that in the last segment of today's show. And Doug has informed me that it no longer exists, that we're going to have to fill it out again.
Well, so here's the thing. I think I did this subconsciously because when you finish it, and I think this applies to a lot of the projects that we start here on the show, when you finish things, they can be judged. And until then, and I think Mitch Kupchak took this a little too seriously when he was general manager. When you finish things, we can judge them. When you do things, we can judge them. And but until you finish them, we can always say, well, it's still a work in progress.
It's a concept of a plan, is what it is.
Well, it's why we do this show every day, right? Like this show will never be finished until I'm in the grave, and by then, judge me all you want. I don't care. I'll haunt you, but I won't care.
You would. You're absolutely the haunting type.
Yeah. So, yes, I think I accidentally deleted this. We will recreate it. We'll put it on Every Hornets box score. It doesn't have to stop us. We can still talk about most underrated, most overrated Hornet of all time and go ahead and finish the selections, and then I will remake the graphic.
All right. So let's brainstorm some names. David, let's go first with you. Let's end on a positive. So let's start with overrated. We can go overrated first, and then we can end on a positive. So, yeah, we got one more hater pick to go. Most overrated Horn Cat of all time, David. Who are some names that come to mind?
So I don't like doing this.
Okay, we know.
That's why we've done this. That's why I'm here. I hacked in and deleted everything from Doug's hard drive. Now listen. We love this guy. I've talked about him for another spot on the another square on this board. But given the position, given the reverence for which he has been discussed, we're talking people have called for banners to be hung, jerseys to be retired.
Whoa.
Jerseys are purchased. Jerseys are available. Del Curry is one of my more overrated.
Whoa! Oh my God! I didn't expect that.
Was never a starter.
I love this pick. Oh my God, I love this pick.
Was never a starter. People have called for his jersey to be retired.
Mr. Hornet, like he's Mr.
I know.
Hornet.
I don't like it. We got to go somewhere. To be overrated, you do have to have some success, and he has some individual success. I just don't feel
he has an award. He's one of the few Hornets of all time to have an actual NBA award. Oh, right. Okay, that's an award. They still give it out.
That's just we're brainstorming, guys. We're brainstorming.
That was shocking.
That's the official pick. You just made the official pick, sir.
That was shocking. I was just for reference, right, to give you a little bit of a view into my brain as to why I reacted the way I did. I was expecting to hear Kelly Oubre, not Del Curry, so there's quite the gap between those two. So
properly rated.
I do
properly rated.
Yeah, maybe. I love this pick though. I do not endorse it, but I can also love it while not endorsing it because you're right. If a guy never started. And he's a sixth man, and yet we're talking about hanging his jersey in the rafters because we love him so.
He is the symbol. He's the symbol of Hornets.
He is
mediocrity as a franchise because we talk about that, and,
I love you,
and
Del.
people make fun of us for it.
I respect and love you. I respect what you've done for the city of Charlotte and the sport of basketball. You've changed the sport indirectly. But, I mean, look, we're talking about the worst position historically in the Hornets franchise, shooting guard. It is just a black hole of nothingness. And so that's one thought. That's one thought.
No, you're good. We can move on.
How good did you have?
I'm still shaking off.
Doug. I need to hear it, Doug. I know I rocked the rafters with that one, but Doug, who had your thoughts?
This is the most difficult category, I think, of all of these categories because we have been through so much pain, and pain allows you the clarity to properly rate things. It's when you experience the euphoria of playoff series victories and championships that you then put on the rose-tinted glasses about players that contributed to those things. But when you don't ever achieve those things, you are left with cold hard realities on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. So this is the tough one. I would say that I think, and maybe Nada mentioned this, and I don't know if he mentioned it on air or off air, but I agree that we probably overrate Steven Jackson a little bit, that we think of him as like an elite player in franchise history when it's like it was one playoff series. They got blitzed. He was a major scorer, but was he really all that much of a two-way player? Was he dominant? No, he wasn't dominant. He just scored a lot on a team that didn't really have many scorers. I've mentioned the hotter take than Del Curry, which is that we might overrate Kemba Walker, because were we really going to ever achieve?
That's hot.
Were we ever going to achieve true playoff success with Kemba Walker as the best player on the team? These were conversations that we had. If there was going to be one guy that we could get rose tinted about in the most recent history, it would be Kemba Walker, because he got all of the individual awards by virtue of being around for a long time on teams that were terrible for the most part. So that's my hottest. Kemba Walker never my hottest take.
I like this because I have another hot take for you. So all three of us can burn together here.
We should put this. Okay, here's and I know this actually would make us not finish this today, but I think we should put this to the YouTube. Let's put Del Curry, let's put Kemba Walker, and let's put whoever Walker says, and maybe we'll throw Stack Jack. No, we won't throw Stack Jack, because I think Stack Jack's going to win it if we throw him in there. So I want to hear all hot takes. We put it on YouTube. They vote.
But we don't have to put whoever we decide here, because there's probably better answers than these names. But I wanted to join the hot take group. That's what I want.
Do it. I know it's coming. Do it.
Yeah, Doug is gonna.
I know who it's gonna be.
You know who it's gonna be. It's going to be painful. I love him too. There's a little bit of the Allen Iverson thing where you look back and be like, oh, God. It's Jamal Mashburn. It's Jamal. I'm so sorry.
Wait, Mashburn?
Yes.
I thought you were going Muggsy. I thought you were going Muggsy.
I'm not going Muggsy. I know. No. I'm going Jamal Mashburn. I'm going Jamal. I thought you knew it because you get mad at me every time I rank him 15 on the best Hornets of all time list. So I thought you'd get mad. My thing about Jamal is, he was shockingly bad shooting 2-point field goals. Shockingly. He was somebody that played 111 games in Charlotte. That was there's not many games that he played here in the city. And I know we don't have a lot of longevity with some of these guys, but even so, that was still a surprising number for me to see that Jamal did not play that many games in the Queen City. I loved him too. As a kid, he was maybe my favorite. Just there's a little bit of you go back, you look at some of the numbers, you look at the effect, you don't realize it in the moment. It's where does he rank? It's tough. That's why I put him out there.
Okay, if we put Mashburn on this vote, then he's going to dominate, because no one's going to want to pick Kemba or Del Curry. So they're just going to pile on.
Okay?
They're going to pile on Mashburn.
I don't either. I don't want to vote for any of them, to be honest with you.
Who did Reddit pick, Doug? Do we know who Reddit picked?
Reddit, I think they picked Nick Batum for this.
Over? People hate that guy.
I gotta double check that one. Maybe they picked Stack Jack. I'll double check that one. But so here's the thing with Mashburn. He suffers from the same thing that Stack Jack suffered from. Both of those teams were focused on the defensive end of the floor almost primarily. And then you had one good scorer, one above average scorer. And so the numbers were inflated. Mashburn was a great offensive weapon for a team that those early 2000s teams were really built entirely on stopping the other team from scoring. And so Baron Davis, gets a little bit of that too. We look at his offense and think, wow, but you look at it in the context of a team that really was focused on just stopping the other team from scoring.
Yeah. Okay, that was not fun. That was the least fun box to fill of all time. I don't even know if we're done here. I'd much rather go Kelly Oubre for all that because of how much people loved him. Does Terry Rozier any Terry Rozier mention I
think he's. I'd put him most underrated, honestly. I just thought we didn't give Terry enough for what he did.
What about the Gat Man, Kenny Gattison? Beloved player, but how much of an impact? I know he brought he kept Larry Johnson here, right? Isn't that the thing?
No one thinks the Gat Man. No one thinks the Gat Man was great. I mean, I think we all have a firm understanding of it. I would put Muggsy into this conversation for sure. Do we overrate him because of the novelty, versus the production?
I've spent my whole Hornets fandom fighting against that notion because it's not an unpopular take. People like to roll with Muggsy was just 5'3". There wasn't anything special about him, but he was a good player. He was a facilitator for what his role was. Nobody cared if he didn't score 15 points per game or even get to 10. His job was to feed LJ, feed Zoe, feed whoever was the star on the team. and also make it really hard to put the ball on the floor. Because if you did, then he would just run under your hip and steal the basketball. Like maybe we view him as this all-star and probably had, alongside Sean Bradley, the worst numbers in Space Jam, but I still go with Muggsy Bogues as appropriately rated. This sucks. I hated this box.
So David, we're not going to finish today, by the way. Spoiler alert. Because I need to get the grid. I need to I need to fix the grid. We need to see the grid. We can do most underrated Hornet of all time. Next time you come back, David. Next week.
Category. I had same category. I'll think about it. Maybe revise my.
But I doubt it. Most overrated. If we want to be serious about this. I don't think we're picking Kemba. David, you can stick with your Dell. I'll give you a life raft and say if you want to jump on the Stack Jack train.
No, we'll never.
Oh, my God.
No.
I'll give you an argument.
He makes love to pressure. Okay?
Well, here's my argument that Stack Jack deserves it more than Jamal. Jamal, you took him out of that last playoff run, and the Hornets, who could have competed, I think, for an Eastern Conference championship, they didn't get there partially because of Jamal Mashburn's injury, whereas Stack Jack, as good as he played during the regular season, was not an impact player in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm not going to fight for Jamal, so I don't. That's fine. If you would have
sticking with Dell, David, you sticking with Dell?
I mean, listen, unless you can argue me off this island, he was a specialist, man. Wow. He was a specialist. He was a specialist. He played zero defense. This is horrible. You guys are making me trash.
I don't like this at all. Don't like it.
Until we get the board back. No,
the pin is out. The grenade. You took the pin out of the grenade.
Well, I don't want to play. I'm so scared. I feel I don't want to. I can't. I gotta dive on the grenade for Dell. I'm jumping on it. Doing it. All right. That's not finished. We didn't even get one box filled out. We'll take some time. We'll all take a shower. We'll come back. We'll try to figure out who the most overrated Hornet is of all time, and then we will complete the project. At least I think so. That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pod. That includes YouTube. I feel icky. That's David Walker. You can find him on Twitter at David B. Walker. Doug Branson, his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Yeah, you don't want David does not want you tweeting him. He does not want you to follow him. And I'm Walker Mail. You can catch me WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you sometime next week.